Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. Today we're discussing Soul 2020, an American computer animated fantasy comedy drama film produced by Pixar Animated Studios and released by Walt Disney Studios. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. This movie is directed by Pete Docter. Now, we know Pete Docter pretty well from Pixar's previous films, such as Monsters, Inc., Up, Inside Out, and now Soul. I love generally the majority of Pixar animated studios work. I mean, we have works as high praise and as detailed as Coco, bringing us into the Mexican Spanish realm of the Day of the Dead, and having really in depth, emotional and emotionally gripping movies such as Inside Out. And I feel like each one of Pete Docter's performances, or each one of his films or animated films, have been like a step in progressing in just perfecting his skill of being the guy that you go to at Pixar Animation that you just know has the emotional ties and has the emotional pull. This guy is very talented in those areas, and on top of bringing an amazing look, I just think that Pixar puts a lot of detail into what they do with the majority of their films. And so this movie is co-directed by Kemp Powers. Now, I'll give a little bit more explanation about Kemp Powers. I'm not really too familiar with who Kemp is as a film screenwriter and playwright, but he's known for his work on One Night in Miami, the 2020 film adaptation of the same name, and then Star Trek Discovery, and now Soul. He was originally asked to help make sure that the detail, the background details of this main character who happens to be black, made sense and that they were correct. And Kemp Powers ended up becoming such an influential part of this, movie, that he is now on here as co-director. So this stars Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton, Rachel House, Alicia Braga, Richard Ayoade. Is that how you say it? Ayoade? I don't know how to say his name. I'm sorry about that. Felicia Rashad, Donnell Rawlings, and Questlove, as well as Angela Bassett. The story follows a middle school. I'm gonna kind of be tiptoeing around the plot for those that didn't see the trailer, because there's kind of like this big thing that happens within the first few minutes of the movie that completely change what you think the movie could be about. And so if you haven't seen the trailer, then it's kind of nice to have that reveal. But I'll see if I can see. Okay, so yeah, I think they give the synopsis in a way that makes sense, that it doesn't completely change the direction of understanding. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the plot of the movie, as spoiler free as we can. So the story follows a middle school music teacher named Joe Gardner, who seeks to reunite his soul and his body after they are accidentally separated, just before his big break as a jazz musician. And so there is a lot going on in this movie, to say the least. Let's kind of cover it by the basics real quick. Let me see what we got. Okay, so, all right. Doctor began developing this film in 2016, working on his contemplations on the origins of human personalities and the concept of determinism. He co-wrote the screenplay with Mike Jones and Kent Powers. The film's producers consulted various jazz musicians, including Herbie Hancock and Terry Lynn Carrington, and animated its musical sequences using the sessions of John Batiste, who originally who created the original compositions for the film as reference. Soul is the first Pixar film to feature an African American protagonist. I know some people are a little bit weird about saying African American versus black, so I'm just gonna stick with black. Okay, so what do we have? Soul premiered at the London Film Festival October 11th, 2020, originally intended its theatrical release in the United States. The film was released to stream on Disney Plus on Christmas, the 25th of 2020, and theatrically released in countries without the streaming service. It received highly positive reviews from critics with praise for its animation, story, voice acting, and music. I gotta say, all of those are correct. Everything that we just read off of Wiki is absolutely correct. I think from the look to the sound to the story basics, it hits on all cylinders. It's if you know Pixar, then you know these are their bread and butter. You know that when you go to an Italian restaurant, that their pizza and that their chicken parmesan and all of their stuff is going to taste good. But you know that when you go to that type of place, you know that when you go to Pixar, these are going to be the positive aspects of the movies. So of their movies specifically. Um, so anything else we got to go from the music? It has this nice divide between Trent Reznor, this synthy undertone of this new world, uh, and Atticus Ross. They kind of go hand in hand, and they just did Mank actually, and I was not that crazy about their score on Mank. I thought it was a little bit more whimsical and didn't have as much focus for me. But to be honest, I really enjoyed the hell out of the stuff that they were producing here. So let me see. Yeah, this was written by Pete Docter, Mike Jones. Mike Jones? No, not that Mike Jones. This is a Pixar Mike Jones. Actually, not as familiar with this guy, but I'll try to keep an eye on. Um, see if I can find anything that he did. Senior story writer on studio animated feature Soul in Lucia. I guess I have not heard of Lucia. Okay, so let's continue on to cinematography. Matt Asbury and Ian Megbian, I guess, I'm not sure. Kevin Noodling did the editing. Yeah, I did like the editing in this, to be honest. This was extremely well edited from a technical standpoint when it's bringing these two worlds of this musician. I can't say musician, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Fuck it. um, um, when it's transferring Jamie Foxx in between, this world, and so anything else that I gotta say before we the cons of the movie is, I will say, in comparison to the other movies that the Soul franchise is actually known for doing, or not the Soul franchise, the Pixar franchise is known for doing. Uh, Let me see if I can pull up a list of all the movies that they've done real quick. They are extremely notable for just having an exuberant amount of amazing franchises that just have pumped out movies, and television series. I mean, here we go. We got Toy Story, Toy Story, 4 movies, 2 TV shows, Monsters Inc. 2 movies, one television show. Finding Nemo, 2 movies. Incredibles, 2 movies. Cars, 3 movies, one television show. Like, this is pretty incredible to incredible. This is pretty impressive to have under their belt, and they haven't exactly gone hog wild with having, tons and tons of franchises and stuff, as they could very well have. I mean, they create worlds within these um, movies that they make, and yeah, just very they're impressive to watch. And normally when they release something, they're always a tier above the average animation company. Um, yeah, I think, let's see. Yeah, so from the movie, from the world building, from the story, I think it's all really strong. My only issue with this movie is, well, there's a couple issues that you can only really discuss the in the spoiler section, but to be quick with it, to be honest, it really, yeah, you got to talk about it in the spoiler section. There's a part about it that some people are going to have to grasp with, like, if they can get over this one part, which is kind of at the beginning of the movie. It is at the beginning of the movie. Then you'll be okay with it. And then there's another part that has to do with it's very hard to talk about, to be honest. But we are not going to hide this behind the Patreon wall. We're kind of feeling like a giving season right now is pretty good. So, all right. Damn, this was an expensive ass movie. Only made 7 million. Oh my Lanta. So, this movie probably would have made a fuck ton if it was released in the States. I know that it's released internationally in some territories, but I'm not even sure what the deal is with the movies across the state, or sorry, across internationally, globally. So let me say, runtime of 106 minutes, was an hour, a little over an hour and a half. Yeah, budget of 150 million. Feels about that. I don't really know what that would be in comparison to the other Pixar Studio animated movies. I'm not really here to talk about the technicals of how much it costs, because I think it looked like $1 million, and I think the detail in it can not be understated enough. And so let's go ahead and hop into the plot and the spoilers for this movie. We'll talk about this way more in detail, and just keep in mind, this is what is normally released on the Patreon page, patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast, where you can get all the new movie reviews. You'll actually get reviews early. You get access to early reviews. You get access to older reviews. You get access to animated reviews. Not my animated, but reviews on animated shows. So just to be clear about that, I'm not that good. I'm not that talented yet, but maybe one day. Yeah. So check out the patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast to help us out. Let me get this real quick before we hop into the spoiler section. Oh my goodness. Well, sorry, I had to answer the phone. All right, let's talk about the plot. Now, like I said, remember, this is normally for Patreon, but you know what? I'm feeling just generous. Just a little generous this year. Or right now, I don't know. So, here's the plot. Joe Gardner. By the way, this is a spoiler section as well. Joe Gardner, a middle school teacher, feels stuck in life and unfulfilled at his job. He dreams of a career in jazz, to which his seamstress mother, Liba, objects, fearing that he will not financially secure. He will not be financially secure. By chance, his former student Curly informs him of an opening in the band of jazz legend Dorothea Williams. Joe impresses Dorothea with his piano playing and is offered the job on the spot. entering, quote unquote, the zone while doing so, as Joe happily leads off to prepare for his first performance later that night. This is where the big spoiler happens. He falls down a manhole. So the problem lies right here for generally the first round of people that have problems with this movie, is that animated characters of people of color are not generally shown for the past, 20, 30, 40 ever years. So when we are represented on screen, it's important to have some representation that matters and is and has longevity to it. The problem that people have with Soul at this point in the plot is the fact that Joe Gardner is just being starting to be fully realized as a character. And by the way, I think the animation, the detail from him being shown as a teacher to how people are acting in school to his mother, to her friends, and just the fine details in this movie are just chef's kiss moi. It's fantastic to watch, and feels uh it feels detailed, as in the same way that Coco did. If anyone watched Coco or didn't remember what Coco did for many of their scenes, they were extremely detailed as well. I don't know if I don't think this is a spoiler. There's one scene where Coco, there's this like mother character is it's known as in Spanish culture for the mother to grab her shoe and like throw it at her son or throw it at her kid or throw it at her husband or something like that. To kind of be way more expressive, um, than than you would expect. But um, yeah, I felt like the detail in that is shown in this as well. And so when we have a person of color shown on screen in animated form, yeah, it becomes kind of difficult when this character falls down a manhole and technically becomes I don't know, not dead, but he essentially is no longer his character anymore, especially in that body. So I did hear people talk about that, and I didn't quite realize how often this had happened. I know that there's that Will Smith Pigeon movie where he turned into um when he turned into like a super spy into a pigeon. And then there is, I guess, if you think about Coco, that is kind of in the same realm. I never really thought about it, I guess, in that context, but I guess it is a little bit right. But to be honest, I don't feel like this movie is not like Joe Gardner falls down a manhole and we never see his character again. It's Joe Gardner falls down a manhole and is transported into a completely different world. Well, relatively. Um, but we are introduced into his quote unquote culture in as he is living in New York. His culture behind jazz, his life, his history. There's a lot of things about um, Joe Gardner that are very specific to where he's located and what he does that I think are explored even after the fact that he falls down a manhole. So let's continue. Let me make sure that my computer's not dying. I know ironically we're talking about Soul and my computer's dying. um, I had to unplug the editing controller. Um, so let's see. Joe finds himself as a soul heading into the great beyond, unwilling to die before his big break. He tries to escape, but ends up in the great before. So at the beginning, he's seeing the great beyond. I want to say the visuals. Oh my gosh, the transferring. First of all, the entire plot of Um, I'm gonna rewind a little bit. Joe ends up saying when he gets that, uh, when he's about to get the spot with Dorothea Williams, or when he gets basically the go ahead with Dorothea Williams, and he jumps out of the jazz club. Uh, he said, look at me, Dad, and it's just like a quick like 1 or 2 second scene. It's not even, uh, it's not shown very long, but it really struck me the second time I was watching this, and I was like, wow, he's still talking to his pops. I can actually, I can relate to that a lot. I lost my pops this year, so I can definitely see this guy, even at that age, pulling that and saying, you know what, I'm going to pursue my dreams, and you're going to watch me. And it's just something powerful to see. And so when he's going through all this, he falls down the manhole. There's this editing that goes from, I believe that he's going from his body into this like black and white 2D animation to this 3D blue body. It is just fantastic to watch. I just love watching the transformation, and the fact that you're just seeing this big light of like stars all combining together, and the people that are on the way. Some of them are more willing than others to combine together. It's like everyone's on this like escalator going into the stairway of heaven, into this big light. And when they're shown to do it, they like transfer to these balls, and they go into the shiny thing, and the big light. They go into the light, and they're like, and it's just like they're gone. And I love his reaction. Jamie Foxx's voice just really encapsulates what's going on. He's like, oh God, no, I don't want to go. He's like, I'm too, I got stuff to do. I got dreams. I got aspirations. And he's like trying to push everybody. He's trying to get past everybody. And that shit was, it's scary and funny all at the same time. And seeing all these different reactions of these people that are all these souls that are trying to either get acquainted with becoming one, into the great beyond. But that one is Jamie Foxx like asking everybody, why is everybody not freaking out? They're like, it's time, and that one guy's like, that would be fucking me. That would be fucking me. So he tries to escape, but ends up in the Great Before, where soul counselors, all named Jerry, prepare unborn souls for life on. Sorry, what am I speaking backwards? Unwilling to die before his big break, he tries to escape, but ends up in the Great Before, where soul counselors, all named Jerry, prepare unborn souls for life on Earth. Joe poses as an instructor who is set to train the souls and is assigned 22, a cynical soul who has remained in the Great Before for millennia and sees no point in living on Earth. 22 reveals that she has a badge that fills up with traits. She needs to find her quote-unquote spark to complete it, and says she will give it to Joe so that he can return home. And so we're set up with this pretty intricate world. So we got the Great Beyond, we got the Great Before, and then we got this whole little system. I heard Chris Herman on Double Toast talk about this. He said it feels like this movie feels like if Apple had gotten a hold of the afterlife. And I was thinking about that, actually going to the Apple store recently. It's hard to argue with that, to be honest. It really does feel like the encapsulation of heaven is explained in a way that feels almost corporate. And nothing wrong with that. I thought it was actually kind of funny in the way that they talk about it. They kind of do riffs on like TED Talks and stuff like that. But it does feel kind of like business-like in a modern day sense. and they have all these people named Jerry, these counselors named Jerry that are pretty funny, and they get a lot of jokes out of it. And then they have this other guy named Terry who's trying to make sure that there's balance in all the numbers that are going into the great beyond. Making sure that the souls coming and going are all lined up. Why? I don't know. So I will say 22, I was very mixed on this character at the very first scene. And I will say, I think the first scene was her worst, and it only got better, which is a compliment in my opinion. I was just like, this character is either going to make it or break this movie, and it absolutely worked. I think she works for the most part. Now, keep in mind, I think this movie was made at least two. I mean, he said he's began developing this in 2016. This movie does feel very much that it's before the BLM movement. Nothing that it has anything to do with it. And people are like, oh, hell, you brought up BLM. It's like, no, it's not about that. I feel like since Black Lives Matter came out, that there had really been a push to show more of the culture. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I want to be shown. I want to be, uh, I want them to show representation, And so this movie does feel like it skirts the line in a way, just barely. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on with the Great Beyond, Great Before. We got this whole little system about the badges that need to be completed, and you need a spark for her to give it to Joe to return home. At that point, I remember watching that. I was like, this is a tad convoluted, but I'm like, okay, I'm still with you. I'm still with you. And so, continuing on, Joe tries to assist 22 in finding a passion, but attempts prove futile. With no other options, 22 takes him out to, quote unquote, the zone, an area that people enter when their passion sets them into a euphoric trance. It also houses the lost souls who become obsessed. They meet Moonwind, a sign twirler who enters the zone to rescue lost souls. He agrees to help Joe return to his body, and they learn that Joe's falling down the manhole sent him into a coma. Joe excitingly hops back to Earth, but accidentally brings 22 with him, resulting in 22 entering his body, and Joe ending up in the body of a therapy cat. So, this was the other part where I was like, this is where it's getting very convoluted for me. I don't know if it was just me that feels dumb, but I was like, this is when it starts to become a little convoluted about being in the zone and having these other lost souls who've become obsessed. I felt like it was a little bit muddled about how everyone became like a lost soul. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Because it says like people enter the euphoric trance when they are on their passion too much, and we do see that stockholder. I will say that was a hilarious scene where he's like, make a trade, make a trade, make a trade. He's pretty damn funny when it comes down to having that sector of becoming too passionate about something. But I guess I got a little confused about what are all the people that are too passionate about something. I mean, the sign twirler just looked like he was baked, I'll be honest. But I liked that character. I liked the music they played with him. It felt very, synthy, almost Mr. Robot-ish. We covered that, by the way. Check that out later. So yeah, I do like Moonwind. I do feel like the zone and these lost souls become a little bit muddled of an idea. But I'm like, okay, there's lost souls, people get too endeared in their passion, and okay, now he agrees to help him to his body. It's like, okay, and that happens. I do feel like the rules of the world feel kind of just like whatever they need them to be at the time they need to be them. That's one thing I feel like Pixar is normally really good about having the rules of the world. It's like the bridge, the bridge in Coco about which side were they on felt very specific. It didn't feel like there was any question about, all right, so can you enter the zone? Can you enter your body? Is it legal to enter the body? Do you need a spark to get a trait that fills up your passport pass? Like, what is going on? That was the biggest thing for me. I was just like, okay, so there's these very specific rules, but except it does feel like there's alternative ways to get what you need to be done uh, in this world. So I'm just like, all right, so what are the rules to this world? It's like, does Moonwind just have the power to help people enter and exit people's bodies, which just feels like, is he God or something? Like, what is the um or a godlike figure? It's like the guy that's doing those hip thrust is is it that guy? So yeah, this is where it becomes more of a convoluted movie for me. I'm just gonna say that. Except when we jump into the therapy cat, I think this becomes one of two things. People are either gonna think it's a gimmick, or one of the two people are gonna say it's hilarious. I do kind of tread down the middle of Tina Fey voicing um, Joe Gardner for like 40 minutes of the movie, maybe 30 minutes of the movie. And it's a fun little get up that happens. But I do feel like, in a way, it wasn't 100% respectful to it. I could see how people could have a problem with it. I didn't feel like they did anything necessarily offensive with it. I don't feel like anybody should be like offended by a white woman voicing a black man, but it's the body swap thing is what's weird about it. And this is where I said it feels a little bit like it was created after the Black Lives Matter movement. There's not really a realization of um, Tina Fey being in the body of Joe Gardner. I do understand that she has these experiences that make her that make her have her spark, that make her want to be alive on the world, and on Earth and stuff like that. Totally get that. I'm not sure if that's going to land with everyone. It didn't like upset me. Like, I was trying to think if a white woman had inhabited like a Latin man, and then she is thinking about becoming a real person at one point, what would be the uh, cultural impacts that she would experience in my body versus a different ethnicity body, a different person of a different ethnicity. um so I was trying to think of it in that way, and I can't say like I was like mad about, like I wasn't mad about that, any of that. I can just see people saying, you know what, this was probably not the best idea. But also, I think that they did it about as cleanly as possible. I don't think they could have given too much of a cultural background for her to like really understand. It's like, oh, I'm living in your shoes kind of thing. It's like, I think they did it about as cleanly as possible. As Disneyfied as possible, and still had a really fun time watching Jamie Foxx as a cat and Tina Fey as Joe Gardner. I felt like there was a great dynamic for the 20-30 minutes that it's going on. Um, and so, let's see. Meanwhile, Terry, an accountant designated to counting souls headed to the great beyond, finds the count off and convinces the Jerrys to let her go into Earth to search for the missing soul. I think it's to let him go. I don't know why it says her. Um, to let to let Terry go down into Earth for the missing soul. Um, I love the design and characters of Jerry and Terry. The designs of both worlds are very aesthetically pleasing. Let's from the character design, from the the eccentric hair that they have on the black characters, all the way to the specific nooks and crannies that you go into the clubs and stuff like that. You see real jazz artists rendered in animated form, and you really get lost in this world. I think, besides the point, the fact that the story is a little bit muddled here and there and a little bit convoluted and kind of convenient at some points, I think the the detail in it absolutely makes up for it and makes me want to return to this movie, makes me want to return to this world. See, I can't really say it, more specifically than that, but from the simplistic designs of Jerry and Terry all the way to the specific designs of the black characters that are shown in this, absolutely beautiful. It feels like you're looking at a moving piece of art, like a moving painting of some sort. I mean, when someone's playing the saxophone, I mean, honestly, I didn't think about it twice that I felt like I was watching the real thing. I mean, I cannot. In the future, it's going to be impossible to tell when we have Pixar style animation available everywhere. I mean, it's just going to be incredible, just the photorealism they have. It feels like they just took the photo, they took a photo and made it move. So 22 and Joe escape the hospital. Initially frightened, 22 settles in Joe's body and finds great enjoyment in the things in life. They kind of shorten that little bit right there, but I will say I was giggling the whole time all of this was happening. I just think that the animation and all of this really worked. From kind of a slapstick standpoint, it really kind of gets the viewers, head up and whatnot. I I was curious about where they were going to take this. They head to Joe's apartment where Connie, one of Joe's students, arrives to tell him that she's quitting the band. She was incredible at the beginning. I will say I really enjoyed the diversity in the band. And that's exactly how my band felt when they showed at the beginning. I remember people didn't give a shit about it. The jazz teacher was trying her best. Or the jazz teacher. It was just the band teacher. Miss Ratchford. She was always trying her best. And band was nasty. I just remember the room was nasty, the floor was nasty, had the woodwinds with all these wood sticks everywhere, slopping the sticks. It's disgusting. I was just like, I remember this so well, that the detail of the candy on the floor. I wasn't the one eating the candy, but damn, I just remember it being there, and I was it was fucking disgusting. So, and there always was a Connie in the class that was just so good, and she didn't ever feel like she was supposed to be there. And I love this scene of him teaching her and him, like, encouraging her to, stay there and find her passion. And so before leaving, Connie plays a passionate trombone solo, stunning 22 in Joe's body, who convinces her of the talent she has and that music is for her. Happy, Connie Joe thanks Joe and leaves, having changed her mind about quitting the band. They go to get a haircut where 22 holds a deep, poignant conversation. Okay, so this little scene with Jamie Foxx, the cat, trying to like buzz Joe's hair. Oh my gosh, I was dying laughing. I was fucking like, oh my lantern, they had these little paws. I was like, I'd be so fucking pissed. And so it was one of the many scenes I wish I had watched this in theaters. Honestly, this movie would have been so good in theaters. It's just a beautiful movie to watch as well as experience. I think that there's multiple times in this movie that you want to be surrounded with, a large group of people. Um, so they go to get a haircut where 22 holds a deep, poignant conversation with Dez, the barber. After 22 Okay, so and there's a lot of detail within this barber scene. Double Toasted, one of my favorite podcasts, went in depth about why this scene really matters and how probably Kemp Powers was the one to, suggest a lot of the detail on this because you have to go to a black barber shop to have this kind of experience from the point of there's a line out the door, there's people sitting everywhere, there's the barber that no one ever wants to go to, and there's the guy that's always talking and making deals, and then there's the posters on the wall that tell you what kind of styles you want, very specific. Tribe called Quest in the background. They covered their cylinders. They knew what they were talking about when they said let's go to the barbershop. And so after the barbershop, after 22 rips Joe's pants while bending down, the duo go to seek Liba to have it fixed, his mother. Joe reconciles with his mother with a deep, poignant conversation, who finally accepts Joe's passion for music and offers him his lattes. His latte. Offers him his late father's old suit. I gotta say that I love the subtle transition of Jamie Foxx talking through the cat to Joe, which is Tina Fey at that time, and the transition is very subtle. It's just like this camera pan behind his mother's back, and it's enough for the viewer to understand that Joe is talking through the cat, but he's also got full control of his body. Not full control, he's just saying things, and it's really coming out and resonating with his mother. And so yeah, I also find it pretty funny that he's just carrying this cat everywhere. 22 is in Joe's body. So yeah, it's a great conversation. It feels like it means a lot. Once again, this is one of many scenes to describe that this is no longer a kids film. It's a family film. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the most mature adult Pixar films that you'll come across. It's the closest to Inside Out, which was the spiritual successor of. This feels like the spiritual successor of Inside Out, which Inside Out feels like the golden child of movies when it's coming to express coming of age and emotions and expressions. It's all wrapped up in that movie. This feels like a more specific time in that movie world almost. Plus, it also deals with a sprinkle of mortality as well. And just, I think it says determinism, like what you ultimately want to do in life. So, before Moonwind can restore Joe, 22, who both experiences an epiphany and decides she must find her. 22 experiences an epiphany and decides she must find her purpose on Earth. She refuses to proceed with Joe's restoration as she flees with Joe's tailing behind. Terry catches up and brings both back to the great before. This little cat and mouse game of Joe and Terry and stuff like that is all a lot of fun. I love the little designs of Terry coming down to the real world. It's the crossover on worlds that are a lot of fun. And I love seeing them jump to the Earth from the great before, I believe. That was always a lot of fun to watch. And the different times that Joe is actually doing it is hilarious. When he's finding out that he can't go all the way to the Earth without, some special magic, I guess, to happen. And that's always pretty funny, especially when he's grabbing all these, the little guys that are in the great before, the little blue ball people at the beginning. He's grabbing them and he's like going to Earth. It's like ah, it's like going to the Earth, and he pops back into the Great Before. It's just it's hilarious, and he tries to ride one down. It's like eee. So anyways, um, let's see. As she flees with Joe tailing behind, Terry catches up and brings both of them to the Great Before, where 22 sees that her badge has been filled out. However, Joe tells her that his experiences and tastes earn that earn the badge. Angry 22 tosses the badge at Joe and disappears into the zone. Joe learns from a Jerry that instead of a life's purpose, a spark simply means that a soul is ready to live. He heads back to Earth and has a successful first performance with the Dorothea Quartet. However, the experience does not fulfill him the way he thought it would, and feels disappointed. It won't be as special as before, now that he will repeat it constantly in Dorothea's tour. Realizing his senseless and selfish ways with 22, he decides to go back to help her. Honestly, I did not read that into his last performance. I thought he felt very satisfied with what he had done. I didn't think that I felt that he was regretful in doing this or taking the position. Like, I thought he was like, yeah, I want to do this. I earned this position, because he did. He was badass. He did the whole thing. So I definitely did not get that he was feeling selfish or any way like that. I do feel like he wanted to help 22 though. So, inspired by the objects 22 collected while in his body. And now remember that they are like sharing memories at this point, and Tina Fey can just remember times and Joe's life at certain points. I think she's just like remembering things in his head. Like one of the women that he used to like talk about, like, does she remember like the sex he's had? Like, does she remember like all the stuff that Joe, like, body swaps always get a little funky when you start talking about the sex. So keep that in mind. So, inspired by the objects 22 collected while in his body, Joe plays the piano to enter the zone. You've now entered the zone. Sounds like a cool radio station. And look for 22, who is now a lost soul. Why is she a lost soul? Hold on, let me see. Okay, so I thought it was a lost soul was something that was only there. Hold on. Okay. A passion sets them in a euphoric trance or lost. It also houses lost souls who've become obsessed. Did she become in a euphoric trance or a obsessed? I don't feel like she became either one of those. So they just kind of threw her there, in my opinion. Maybe she became obsessed with, being alive or something like that. Let me know in the comments what y'all thought. So yeah, regardless, she's now a lost soul. And remember seeing how the stock guy came and went, and how they were showing like when they were going through the zone, I guess. It's just really cool to see them become these kind of like almost Monsters Inc. creatures, this Cyclops looking. So anyway, she's now turning into a lost soul. He tries to return her badge, but 22 remains hopeless and broken about her purpose. Using a small maple seed that 22 had collected, Joe convinces that she is ready to live, and she returns to normal. Small maple seed that 22 had collected. It was the tiny little seed that had flown down and fallen in her hand when she was Joe. So she convinces her to live. She returns to normal. With her badge back, 22 finally enters Earth, with Joe accompanying her for as long as he can. This was a really sweet scene. I really like this scene. I actually was watching this with Kelly, and Kelly was like, "I really hope we get to see 22's body." I didn't even think about what 22 would look like as a real person. I like, does 22 come to Earth now as a baby? Is is that what I'm getting? I kind of was a little bit um fuzzy on the logistics of her coming to Earth. Like, I assume she wasn't going to just, pop into a cat body or another Joe body, but I guess she's gonna show up as a baby. But anyways, so yeah, she enters Earth, and I love the scene of Joe accompanying her. As he prepares to head into the great beyond, Joe is stopped by a Jerry who tells him that he has inspired them, and will give him another chance at life. Joe thanks them and returns to his body back on Earth, now with the intent to live his life to the fullest. Now, I gotta say that there was numerous times that the Jerrys were all of a sudden telling Joe that, oh, you don't want to help 22, then we can just take you to the portal. We can take you straight to the great beyond. That's all. That's all you want. It was almost used like a threat in a way. In, I think, any other context, or a lot of other people's might say, well, Joe might have wanted to just go to the great beyond and say, fuck it. He's tired. He doesn't want to do this shit anymore. He doesn't want to take care of 22's crazy ass. Um, you know, hyperbolic ass. I don't even know how to explain it. But anyways, um, yeah, I kind of felt like they were using the great beyond a little bit fast and loose as like a joke slash, you don't want to go back. And it's like, all right, it feels like Joe's character is pretty much wrapped up at the end of this, and I almost kind of wanted an obscure ending. I understand for the fact that it's a family movie that we're not going to have, you know, death be the one all be all kind of thing for this the ending of the movie. But the way that they just say that they give him another chance at life by, tricking Jerry to look the other way, it's like that's that's what happened. Like, I felt like they might have had one or two explanations about how they were going to end this movie. Maybe there was a script where he actually did die, or something had happened, or I'm not really sure. To be honest, this would be an extremely difficult movie to land and end on a positive note without going too sentimental, I guess. Um, it's almost like make every day count kind of thing. But I still feel like I, for as detailed as the movie was, and when the hilarious, so it's really funny, but it's also dramatic. With the comedy being the random cuts to them talking about was Abraham Lincoln always honest kind of thing. That shit was so fucking funny. He's like, Jackson, and so I just I enjoyed those random cuts to those types of um, pieces of comedy. But with how serious they were taking this movie, I was like, yeah, this ending feels a little false. And so, kind of going back and looking at the majority of the movie, yes, I enjoyed the hell out of the movie. I think it's, from a technical standpoint, one of the best movies of the year. Um, highly rewatchable, just like many of the Pixar films. It's going up there with the top 10 probably. I like it better than a lot of the additional Toy Stories that have come out. I just feel like this is way more original, and it's a lot more fun. And the body swap part of it's, possibly problematic in some areas, but for the most part, I found it pretty funny. Um, I'm not gonna, tell somebody whether or not they should like this movie more than they shouldn't. I just hope that this review helps explain and give a few reasons why I liked it. Also noticed that there weren't any shorts before the Pixar movie. I really wanted to see another short. I love the Disney shorts that happen before all the Pixar movies. So, let me see. What's planning to play this? Let me see. Yeah, I think that is just about it. So, wow. Okay, so hold on. Let me see this. Pixar was mindful of history of racist imagery in animation, and set out to create characters who are recognizably black while avoiding stereotypes and old cartoons. Acknowledging this effort, Doctor stated that there's a long and painful history of caricatured racist design tropes that were used to mock African American or black individuals. Um, According to Powers, the animators used lighting as a way to highlight the ethnic diversity in the living world. Pixar sought to capture the fine details of these black characters, including the textures of black hair and the way that light plays on various tones of black skin. Cinematographer Bradford Young worked as a lighting consultant on the film. Um, he is a black cinematographer who's best known for working on Selma and When They See Us, a Most Violent Year, and Solo, a Star Wars story. Oh, and Arrival. This guy has got some work under his belt. My God. Young guy, too, only at 43. So, yeah, I will say that the the skin tone and the way that um, how detailed the people look in character form is just phenomenal. I mean, these are beautiful people that they have drawn, and I want to see more representation like this. And so, yeah, thank you. Let me know what you thought about Soul, the movie review from the Lucky Dog Podcast. Be sure to rate, share, subscribe. Lucky Dog Podcast. You know what to do. 5 stars on iTunes. It's the only way we can get up there in the charts, in the streaming charts, and the whatever charts, and the soul charts, and the Disney charts. Yeah, you can get this podcast live on Twitch. You can get it mastered on SoundCloud. You can get it early on Patreon and on YouTube. And yeah, remember, generally, podcasts are going to go straight to spoiler free only, and Patreon will have the spoiler section coming up in 2021. Keep that in mind. So all of that will be linked in the description. Be sure to join the Facebook group. We have some funny videos we're always showing on there. Right now we're streaming on Twitch. Thank you to everyone that has checked out the Twitch channel and is subscribed and followed on there. Any way that you can support the Lucky Dog Podcast, any way that I can improve, let me know how I can do that. I hope everyone is trying to end this 2020 crazy year on a positive note. I just wanted to let you know that we are here right there with you. And so, yeah, love you guys. Y'all take it easy.